Welcome to this video. This will be part 2 of boundary setting, super important topic. So I already made one whole video about what are boundaries, why it's important to set them, different types of boundaries, and this video will be about how to implement boundaries, good implementation versus bad implementation, and let's get into it because boundaries are super important and will give you huge advantage in life. So for example, you have the situation, you have a coworker and you said to your coworker, hey, you have to finish this project on Friday, and you have to finish this project and send it to me on Friday in the morning, maybe at like 8 a.m. is the deadline so that I can review it and then we can finish it on Friday 2 p.m. That is your kind of the situation. And then your coworker sends you a message on Friday 1:30 p.m. and says, hey, sorry, I couldn't manage to finish it earlier. Can you please review it? And then now it's your turn. What do? How do you react? Do you set a boundary with the other person or not? And one example of a rigid boundary would be, for example, that you just ghost the person, you just read the email, but you just do as if you haven't read the email and you just don't care. That would be a rigid boundary. So often also passive-aggressive behavior, and that's considered often as rude or inconsiderate. So another example would be you're invited to a birthday party. You really don't want to go because it's like you would much rather go to the cinema or do something more fun for you. But instead you just say, oh yeah, sure, I will come. And then 1 hour before the event, you actually cancel and say, oh, sorry, I have migraines or whatever it is. That's not nice behavior because, I mean, if you're lying, that's not nice behavior. If you have really migraines, of course. But if you're lying to the other person, that's not nice because the other person also has some, for example, they have a catering that they bring. They have to manage, okay, how many people will come, so I will make this amount of food. And if everyone would do it, the other person would maybe lose a lot of money or would just make so much food and nobody shows up. So it's not really good, mature boundary setting in a way. Another way to set a boundary that is also not really the best way to set a boundary would be to say to your coworker to write back to them and say, okay, I will just do it. I will just review it, and then you review the project that your coworker sent to you. But as the outcome of that, you miss your child's football game that you promised your child to go to. So that is also not really a good behavior, because what you do, or a good boundary setting, is because you it's like a dog now. You give to a dog that misbehaved, you give them a treat, even though they misbehaved. So you let the other person continue disrespect your boundaries, because this person has disrespected your boundary by not setting the project in earlier or at the time that you had arranged for. So that is also not good if you have that kind of loose boundaries. If you say no but you still do it, or you say yes but you actually mean no, that's not really a good way to set a boundary, because in the end it will cause resentment in you. It will hurt other people that, for example, in that case of your daughter that you have promised something to, because you couldn't set that boundary with your coworker. And actually, even much further, it can keep you in really bad situations. For example, you have someone who doesn't treat you correctly, let it be a family member or a friend or a partner, and you still stay with that person and they keep mistreating you. That is also loose boundaries, because and there's no shame in that. I'm not judging anyone, but just that you know that if someone does something wrong and we give them a treat, they will continue that misbehavior. So it's also in a way how we treat people to behave by setting our own boundaries. Instead of, for example, if a partner mistreats me, then I clearly have to say, of course it's always easier said than done, but it would be the ideal case to say, okay, I leave that person or I cut contact with that person, no matter if it's a family member, partner, or friend. And the best way to set a boundary is healthy boundary setting, and that is assertive. Assertive is like communicating clearly and saying, hey, For example, with your coworker, communicate with your coworker, hey, listen, this is, you have, I mean, there are different ways how you want to manage it, but for example, hey, listen, no. So you have, I said to you, send me the project at 7 or 8 a.m. and you send it to me by 1:30 p.m. So I have only 30 minutes to review it. After that, I'm sorry, I cannot review it anymore. So you will just do 30 minutes of reviewing, and then you will go and watch the football game with your daughter. So you will keep a boundary around your personal space, about your, not personal space, but personal time with your family, about your family time. So you keep that boundary, and that is really great, because then you can still use that 30 minutes, but you also teach your coworker with your action, and you say, hey, your behavior was not okay. We arranged a time for you to send in that project. You didn't do it. Your behavior was not okay. And if you want to have a good outcome next time, you have to put in better work next time. So that is example of good boundary setting when it's clear. So you clearly state, hey, listen, you have not respected my boundary, or you have not sent in the project by that specific time. So now I only have 30 minutes. I would have loved to help you more, but now I just have 30 minutes and I'm very sorry. Maybe next time we have a better outcome, whatever it is. So that would be a form of good boundary setting. Another example would be, in terms of if someone is mistreating you, to say to the person, hey, this is not good behavior. With your behavior, you show me that you disrespect me, so I will have space from you. I will cut the contact or really drastically minimize the contact. And the outcome of that is amazing, because you can good boundary setting is amazing, because you can actually grow self-confidence for yourself. And some examples on how you can actually set boundaries is, for example, I'm not comfortable with this. It doesn't work for me. I've decided not to. This is not acceptable for me. Not at this time. No, I don't want to do that. So just some phrases that could help you. And also, what is a good boundary? Or a good boundary is to come from I perspective, to say, for example, I need, I value, I want, I don't want, I don't respect that. That is not okay. I would be happy, blah, blah, blah. And then always come back to your own actions. So, for example, to not say, okay, you have to do this because I can never control someone else's actions. I mean, some cases probably you can, but for the most part you cannot. So for example, you cannot control if your partner is lying to you or not, or whatever it is. You always have to come back to yourself. So if my partner is lying to me, can I come back to myself and say, okay, this partner is not right for me? Or maybe with a family member, this person is disrespecting me. Can I cut contact or reduce contact? So always come back to yourself. And it's really important always to prepare for pushback, because usually you have to set boundaries with difficult people, because that's the ones that you have to set boundaries from. So you have to prepare usually also for a difficult response, or if you have to set, for example, boundaries with someone who disrespects you in a relationship, usually they also keep disrespecting you once you set a boundary. So you have to prepare for that. For example, you have a parent and you have a child, and your parent always gives the child, for example, you're a vegetarian, and then the parent gives the child meat, and you say, oh my god, what did you do? So it's your responsibility to say, you will not get my children anymore because you are disrespecting my boundaries. I warned you, you did it again, that's it. And then of course, usually the parent, because I mean, if you disrespect in that way, and you give your child's child, so your grandchild meat, even that's not allowed, then you're usually really immature. So usually the response is also really immature. Maybe they will scream, or maybe they will make themselves the victim, whatever it is. You have to be preparing for that pushback so that you can withstand that pushback and that you can keep that boundary. And you can keep, even if, for example, one day your parent shows up at your door and be like, oh, please, please, then you still are strong enough to say, no, I don't trust you, and this is not okay. And I know that based on your past actions, that your future actions will still be disrespectful. So really important, prepare for pushback, and also keep it consistent. Boundaries are only usually effective if they are consistent. For example, that happens a lot in relationships. If you have a partner who's cheating on you and you say, hey, I don't allow that, so you move out, and then 1 month later you come back together, and then the partner cheats again on you, and then you come back together, then you move out, and then you go back together, and it's this cycle, this destructive cycle. It's because you're not consistent in your boundaries. So it, like, depending on the boundary you set, it can be so hard. I mean, cutting contact with a parent or cutting contact with a partner is probably one of the hardest boundaries to set, but it's also usually one of the biggest signs of self-respect in a way. But yeah, it can completely destroy you, and you still have to be strong enough to maintain that boundary for your own personal health. So yeah, so maybe some advice, and that's already the video done for then. For now is, when you maintain that boundary, you don't need to over explain yourself. If you, for example, have a ex-boyfriend or ex-girlfriend who disrespected you, or maybe a colleague who disrespected you, like, sometimes people, they don't want an explanation, they just want to put themselves into the victim position. So you don't need to over explain yourself, you don't need to justify yourself. If you have a boundary that you have made, usually you made it for a good reason, and you should not feel, or you don't need to feel guilty for setting certain boundaries if it is to protect yourself. So yeah, so this is my video about boundary setting. I would highly recommend, if you have the chance to, and if it's really hard for you to set boundaries, to work with a therapist, because it's a huge topic. People write books about it, and it's really worth investing time into that. So if you have problems with boundaries, maybe consult a therapist to work on that, because boundary setting is really fundamental. It's kind of the fundamentals that your life quality and your mental health is on, and if you don't set boundaries, it can really wreck your whole relationships and your whole life. And therapy, I think, can really help you to become in touch with who you are, what your needs are, because maybe growing up in a certain family structure, you have never learned what are actually your needs, when is someone overstepping a boundary. So in therapy, you can really learn, okay, when do I actually have the need to set a boundary, and can help you maintain that certain specific boundary. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Good luck with setting boundaries, and I hope you have a wonderful, beautiful day. If you liked the video, give it a like, subscribe to my channel, and yeah, follow me for more content. Maybe check out the description box, follow me on Instagram, whatever it is. See you!